They'll look at where you are, the calm, the focus, the strength, and say, "Must be nice." As if life handed you something they didn't get. As if you stumbled into clarity on a lucky day with perfect timing. But what they won't see, what they never do, is everything that happened when no one was watching. They won't see the hours you spent in silence, wrestling with thoughts that tried to pull you off course. They won't know about the early mornings when you got up, not because you felt like it, but because you made a quiet decision not to break. They'll miss the nights you kept going when it would have been easier to stop. Because inner power doesn't arrive wrapped in fireworks. It's not inherited. It's not granted. It's built, quietly, repetitively, in solitude. And here's the truth no one tells you. Transformation doesn't start when the applause comes. It begins in the shadows, in the still moments when no one claps, no one cheers, and no one even knows what you're building. But you feel the friction. You feel the resistance. And yet, you keep showing up. That's not luck. That's not timing. That's discipline. And discipline isn't flashy, but it's powerful. It's the engine behind every lasting change. It's the quiet force that turns chaos into clarity. So the next time someone says, "You're lucky," smile. Let them think what they want. You know the truth, you earned this. And you're still earning it. Let's get one thing straight: you don't find clarity, strength, or peace. You become someone who naturally attracts them. See, the world doesn't give these things out like prizes. They don't arrive by chance, and they don't knock politely. Clarity shows up when your mind is no longer at war with itself. Strength appears when you choose discipline over distraction. And peace? Peace finds those who've made peace a practice, not just a wish. And that begins in one place: the mind. A trained mind radiates something different. It doesn't have to speak loudly. It doesn't need to prove anything. There's a groundedness, a kind of calm focus that shifts the energy in a room, and people feel it, even if they can't explain it. You know the type, the person who doesn't rush to react, who listens more than they speak, who moves with intention. That isn't natural for most of us. It's earned, built, trained through small, quiet repetitions that seem invisible at first, but stack over time. It's like tuning an instrument. At first, you barely hear the difference, but keep adjusting, keep practicing, and one day, everything feels in harmony. The same applies to your thoughts. Train them, and over time, your reality starts to match the rhythm inside you. So ask yourself, what are you rehearsing in your mind when no one's around? Are you training fear or focus? Because the world doesn't just respond to what you want, it responds to who you've become. And that power? It's already within you. You just have to train it. Most people won't see the early mornings when you wake up tired, but show up anyway. They won't notice the moments you choose silence over scrolling or discipline over ease. They won't see the small, invisible decisions you make when no one's watching. But they add up. And over time, those tiny, deliberate choices begin to shape who you are. Not just what you do, but who you are becoming. You see, mindset doesn't just click into place one day. It doesn't fall from the sky like some bolt of inspiration. In fact, if you don't train your mind, if you leave it on autopilot, it drifts toward fear, toward comfort, toward the path of least resistance. And that drift, it's dangerous because it feels safe, but it slowly erases your edge. A strong identity, one that leads, one that doesn't crack under pressure, isn't built in one grand gesture. It's shaped like a sculpture, one intentional stroke at a time, through repetition, through consistency. Not motivation. Motivation is loud and fleeting. Repetition is quiet, but it sticks. That's why the version of you you're building isn't forged in front of an audience. It's built in the background, through the daily grind most people never notice, but that defines everything. So the question is, what story are your habits writing? You don't need to be perfect. But you do need to be deliberate, because every thought, every action, every small decision, it all becomes a vote for the identity you're stepping into. Build it like it matters, because it does. Before the world even knows you're awake, you have a choice. You can dive straight into the noise, the notifications, the emails, the urgent demands that aren't really yours, or you can pause, just for a moment, and lead yourself inward first. That's where real leadership begins, not in managing others, but in mastering your own presence. You don't need to wait for motivation to strike. You don't need anyone's permission to become the person you already know you're capable of being. The world might tell you to hustle, to chase, to react. But the Stoic path? It says, be still first. Because the first decision of the day isn't what you do, it's who you choose to be. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet he began each day reflecting in silence. Why? Because he knew, if you don't lead your mind, the world will do it for you. And the world? It rarely has your best interest at heart. You don't need the perfect morning routine, the ideal conditions, or a wave of inspiration. You need alignment. You need to act from the identity you're choosing, not the mood you're feeling. So ask yourself, are you showing up today as a reaction or a decision? That's the difference. That's where power begins. Not in being loud, not in being perfect, but in quietly leading yourself before the world gets its hands on you. And if you can do that, even just for 5 minutes each morning, you've already won more than most. Most people don't realize it, but they're not living their own story. They're living out a script that was handed to them by fear, by culture, by the quiet voices of people who didn't believe in much and expected even less. Think about it. How many of your beliefs are truly yours? How many of your limits were set before you even knew you had a choice? It's easy to go through life reacting stuck in patterns that feel familiar but don't feel right. But here's the truth no one tells you. That script isn't permanent. You can rewrite it, line by line. You do that by cutting out the noise, the self-pity that whispers, "Poor me," the toxic thoughts that question your worth, the distractions that feel urgent but aren't important. That mental clutter? It's not harmless. It's shaping who you become. Because mindset isn't just a mood, it's architecture. Every thought you allow, every habit you reinforce, every choice you make is laying a brick in the structure of your identity. And identity? It's not discovered. It's built thought by thought, habit by habit, decision by decision. So if you've been waiting for permission to take back the pen and write something real, this is it. You are the author now. Start with one belief, one habit, one quiet choice that says, "This time, I lead." Here's something we don't hear enough. Discomfort isn't a problem. It's a signal, a doorway, a forge. It's not the enemy of growth, it is growth. You see, we've been taught to fear pressure, to run from tension, to label friction as failure. But the Stoics saw it differently. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, they all believed adversity was the training ground for the soul. Not a wall to avoid, but a fire to walk through. Because nothing builds strength like resistance. Think of the muscles in your body, they don't grow when you rest. They grow when you're under load. The same applies to your mind. Every challenge, every uncomfortable moment, every internal storm, it's shaping you. If and only if you choose to stay with it. A trained mind doesn't resent the storm. It doesn't beg for ease. It learns to adapt, to absorb, to turn setbacks into strategy and pain into fuel. So the next time life presses in, ask yourself, what is this pressure trying to teach me? Because maybe, just maybe, it's not here to break you. Maybe it's here to build the version of you you've been asking for all along. Becoming someone new doesn't happen in a single moment. It's not a switch you flip, or a breakthrough that magically rewrites your life. It happens slowly, almost invisibly, in the quiet rhythm of repetition. Every empowering thought you repeat, every small disciplined action you take, is a vote for the person you're becoming. Over time, that self-talk becomes your inner architecture. The way you speak to yourself when no one's listening that builds your foundation, and your habits, they become your armor. Not flashy, not loud, but strong, unshakable when life gets messy. There's a myth that transformation needs motivation. But momentum is what truly moves you forward. And momentum starts with motion. Not big leaps, but small, steady steps done over and over again. Ask yourself, what are you rehearsing in your mind each day? Doubt or discipline? Hesitation or action? The truth is, repetition doesn't care if you're repeating something helpful or harmful. It just strengthens whatever you feed it. So choose wisely, because the person you become isn't built in one grand moment. They're shaped thought by thought, choice by choice, until one day, the new you isn't new anymore. It's just who you are. Real power doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. In a world addicted to attention, the strongest presence is often the quietest one in the room. You've probably felt it before, that one person who doesn't have to dominate the conversation, but when they speak, people lean in. Why? Because their energy is calm, their direction clear. They don't move to impress. They move with purpose. That's the kind of leadership we're talking about here. Not the kind that needs applause, but the kind that operates from deep alignment. See, when you're grounded within yourself, you don't get pulled into drama or distraction. You act from principle, not pressure. You choose deliberate action over reaction. You build, not to prove, but to serve something bigger than your ego. And what's wild is, the world starts to notice. Quiet confidence shifts the energy of a room. Discipline earns respect without asking. The Stoics understood this long ago. True influence doesn't come from noise. It comes from clarity, consistency, and self-command. So, if you're tired of performing, of always trying to keep up, maybe it's time to lead without noise. Not to be seen, but to be solid. To move like someone who already knows who they are. That's the kind of power that doesn't fade. It multiplies. Here's the truth. No one wants to admit the world doesn't change just because we want it to. It changes when we do. Not on the surface, not by force, but deep down at the level of thought, belief, and identity. Your mind is the gatekeeper of your reality. You train it, or it trains you. Think about it. Every decision you make, every reaction, every direction you choose, it all begins in the mind. And if that internal space is cluttered with noise, fear, or outdated stories, how can you expect your life to move forward? But when you train your mind, truly train it, everything else begins to follow. Focus sharpens, emotion steadies. Your path becomes clearer, even if it's not easier. Because now, you're not just reacting to life. You're shaping it. This space, this channel, this moment, it's for those who move slower, think deeper, and build stronger. The ones who aren't chasing attention, but anchoring into meaning. The ones who aren't trying to look powerful, they're becoming powerful. So stay steady, stay thoughtful, stay real. Because transformation doesn't happen in a flash. It happens one thought, one practice, one quiet decision at a time.